Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome to It's a Shaw Thing. I'm your host, Rob Shaw, here to talk a little fantasy football. We start off with the Open Sports Open Huddle. We'll go over every single game coming up this weekend and discuss the fantasy relevance. Of course, it all started Thursday night with the Bears and the Saints. A little bit of a disappointment if you had Matt Forte or Reggie Bush. Pierre Thomas, the big star of the evening. Now, let's see what's coming up this weekend. We start off with Tampa Bay at Atlanta. What to expect there? I think everything from the Atlanta Falcons. They've been a very consistent team on offense. Matt Ryan should be great. Roddy White, one of the elite wide receivers this season, and one of the best running backs also, Michael Turner, should all be great starts. As far as Tampa Bay, it's a little dicey there, but Warrick Dunn returning to his all-stomping grounds should be a pretty good start. Aside from him, Antonio Bryant is a must-start. Jeff Garcia is a risky one. Next up, Washington at Cincinnati. This is a chance for Washington to bounce back. Clinton Portis, by the way, look, the guy wants the ball more, he'll get the ball more. He's a good start this weekend. Santana Moss, not a bad start. Same thing with Chris Cooley. Jason Campbell, not crazy about him, but against Cincinnati, he should be decent. As far as Cincinnati, I think Hushmanzada and even Chad Johnson, not horrible starts. Cedric Benson, you're rolling the dice. Don't expect more than 60 total yards of offense. Next up, Tennessee against Houston. This should be an interesting one for the running backs. I like them all. Steve Slayton, I definitely start. Chris Johnson, I start. Lendell White, I start as well. As far as the wide receiving crew from Tennessee, I probably wouldn't start any of them, but you have to start Andre Johnson. You have to start Kevin Walter these days. And Owen Daniel's not a horrible start at tight end either. Matt Schaub is a better quarterback option than Kerry Collins. Next up, Detroit at Indianapolis. This is going to be an interesting one for the Colts. You have to start every single player aside from Joseph Adai. Let him rest. Dominique Rhodes gets a start in his place. He'll be a good fantasy option this weekend because let's just expect them to build an early lead and run the ball in the second half. So Peyton Manning's still a good start. Reggie Wayne, I would start him even though he's been struggling lately. Dallas Clark is a good start as well. Marvin Harrison, a little dicey. Same thing goes for Anthony Gonzalez. As far as the other side of that matchup for Detroit, Kevin Smith, not a horrible option because Indianapolis's rush defense isn't all that great. But aside from him, Calvin Johnson's the only guy you definitely do want to start. Next up, Green Bay against Jacksonville. Ryan Grant, I would start. I would also start Aaron Rodgers for sure, as well as Greg Jennings and Donald Lee at tight end. The Jaguars' defense is a little banged up. Rashid Mathis no longer playing this season. For the Jaguars, no Fred Taylor means big performance from Maurice Jones-Drew. Aside from him, it's tough because Matt Jones is now out for the season. David Garrard, not a horrible option, but the Packers' defense could be pretty good in this one. Next up, San Diego against Kansas City. This was a close one the last time these two teams met. I don't trust Larry Johnson, not anymore, not after what happened last weekend, but I do trust Tyler Thigpen having a fine year, Tony Gonzalez, Dwayne Bowe as well. On the other side of that matchup, Chris Chambers probably would not start, but I definitely would start LaDainian and Tomlinson in this one. Chris Chambers as well, and Philip Rivers against KC is not a bad matchup. San Francisco at Miami. What to expect from Miami? How about Devon Best? The wide receiver's been great. Aside from him, Chad Pennington's been pretty consistent. I would consider starting him once again. Ted Ginn Jr. as well. The backfield's pretty much split, so you can go with either Ricky Williams or Ronnie Brown, but don't expect too much. For San Fran, Frank Gore might be out in this one. Be ready to grab Deshaun Foster, but do be warned. Consider the fact that Miami's defense against the rush is pretty good, allowing fewer than 100 yards per game this season. Aside from them, Sean Hill's a pretty good start in this one, and I would also probably start Isaac Bruce, but that's pretty much it from that team. Buffalo against the New York Jets. It's tough to guess what to expect from the Jets aside from Thomas Jones. The guy's been unbelievable throughout the year. I think Favre will bounce back, but he is a risky play, as is Lavernius Coles and Jericho Cotchery. One day they show up, one day they don't. Dustin Keller, though, at tight end, even though he was quiet last weekend, should be a pretty good start in this one. For Buffalo, Marshawn Lynch is the only guy I truly feel comfortable with. Lee Evans, not a bad second or third option, but remember, this is a guy we expected to be a number one option. Next up, Seattle at St. Louis. Deion Branch was fantastic last weekend. I'd start him. By the way, Seneca Wallace, not a bad start this weekend. As far as the backfield, looks like Maurice Morris is the number one option there. Not that that means much. As far as St. Louis goes, not many options again, but Steven Jackson is a must-start every single week. Now we're talking Minnesota at Arizona. What to expect from Minnesota? Tavares Jackson's playing quarterback. That means beware if you have Bernard Berrian on your team. Adrian Peterson's an obvious one. For Arizona, I'm starting Kurt Warner. I'm starting all the guys, including Steve Preston, Anquan Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald. As far as Hightower goes, start him, but don't expect more than 40 total yards of offense. You're basically banking on him finding the end zone. Next up, New England at Oakland. Oakland's defense against the pass has been pretty impressive. On top of that, an emotional weekend for Matt Castle. So be wary there. You do have to start Randy Moss, though, and you do have to start Wes Welker. From the backfield, Sammy Morris seems to be the best option for the Patriots. As far as Oakland, it's very simple. McFadden's not getting much run, which means Justin Fargas is the way to go. At tight end, Zach Miller is the only other guy with fantasy relevance as far as Oakland's team. Next up, we're talking Pittsburgh at Baltimore. For Pittsburgh, again, going against a very good defense here. It's going to be a slugfest, but I still think Ben Roethlisberger will find a way. Willie Parker seems to be the number one option on the ground there. He's been struggling recently, going against a very good defense as well, so very wary of that matchup. Hines Ward, Antonio Holmes, Nate Washington, all those guys could be in the mix for a second or third wide receiver spot. As far as Ravens go, look, you got to start Derek Mason every week. He's proven that much, and it seems to be LaRon McClain's turn as the hot hand for that team. Now we're talking Denver at Carolina. You have to start Jay Cutler still. You have to start Brandon Marshall. I think Eddie Royal's a good start. Tony Scheffler, a little risky, but you have to start him. If you're looking for the guy in the backfield, it's going to be Tatum Bell this time. He's going against a good defense, but I think you could still expect 75 total yards of offense, which isn't all that bad considering how many guys are injured. As far as Carolina's team goes, D'Angelo Williams having an unbelievable year. Jonathan Stewart, by the way, not a bad option either, so consider both of them as well as Steve Smith. Delhomme is a risky bet. Next up, New York Giants going against the Dallas Cowboys. For the Giants, Brandon Jacobs a little banged up. Derek Ward should be a very good start. Eli Manning should be all right against a banged-up secondary of the Cowboys, but remember, no Plaxico Burress, so he's going to have to rely on some guys making catches, such as Dominique Hickson and Kevin Boss at tight end. As far as the Cowboys go, look, whenever T.O. complains, he usually gets the ball plenty the next week. So T.O.'s a good start. Jason Witten's a good start. Tony Romo should be a good start. It's all about how the offensive line holds up, but I think you still do want to start him in this matchup. But from the backfield, Marion Barber is not the way to go this week, and consider again Tashard Choice, or consider benching both of them. Now you're looking at Cleveland and Philadelphia to finish up the week, and we're talking about Cleveland being a team that's just horrible right now. A ton of injuries have really hurt them. Braylon Edwards, the only guy that's somewhat healthy, and he's not performing. There's a point where I would say I would not start anyone from the Browns team, including Jamal Lewis. As far as Philadelphia goes, looks like everyone's getting back into shape. Donovan McNabb should have a great weekend. Same thing goes for Brian Westbrook. Start both of them. Kevin Curtis also, by the way, should be good. Deshaun Jackson, a little bit of risk there, but he's been performing pretty well throughout the entire season. And that's it, my friends. That's your Open Sports Open Huddle. If you have any questions, do email us, fantasy@opensports.com.
So you think you can tackle a pro? There's only one way to find out. Click on fantasy@opensports.com.